Have you ever wondered what would happen if you gave yourself just 15 minutes of complete solitude every single day for 30 days? Not scrolling in silence, not lying in bed with your thoughts racing, not the passive quiet of waiting for something to happen. True solitude. Chosen. Deliberate. Absolute. Most people spend their entire lives surrounded by noise and then wonder why they feel so far from themselves. They wake up reaching for their phone before their eyes have fully opened. They fill every gap in the day with sound, content, stimulation. They go to sleep with the television on because the silence feels like a threat. And somewhere inside all of that noise, a version of themselves is waiting, patient, quiet, completely still, that they have never actually met. The Sensei says something about this that stops people when they first hear it.
You cannot hear the voice of your own life when you are always listening to someone else's. What would happen if for the next 30 days you made one decision every single day?
15 minutes, alone, in silence, before the world makes its first demand. By the end of this video, you may realize that those 15 minutes don't just change your morning. They change everything that follows. Number 1, solitude reveals what you have been running from. One of the first things that happens when you begin sitting in true solitude is this. Things you didn't know you were avoiding begin surfacing. Most people discover in their first few days that silence is deeply uncomfortable. Not because silence is painful, but because silence removes the anesthesia. All day long, the noise of modern life serves one hidden function that nobody talks about. It keeps you from feeling what is actually there. The anxiety you managed with a podcast, the question about your life you have been postponing for 3 years with an endless feed of other people's answers. When the noise stops, those things don't disappear. They simply become audible. The Sensei teaches that this discomfort is not a sign that solitude is dangerous. It is proof that it is working. Think of a glass of water that has been sitting undisturbed for years, collecting sediment at the bottom. The moment the motion ceases, the sediment begins to rise.
The water looks worse before it looks better. But the sediment was always there. You just couldn't see it while everything was moving. That is what the first week of daily solitude feels like. Things rise. Old feelings, old questions, old versions of yourself that needed attention and never received it. The Sensei says, you cannot clean a room you are never willing to enter.
Number 2, solitude separates your thoughts from other people's thoughts. After 1 week of daily silence, something begins shifting in the way you think. You start noticing, often for the first time, which thoughts are actually yours and which thoughts were installed by the noise around you. The opinion you hold about yourself, where did it come from? The definition of success you have been chasing, who wrote it? The anxiety you feel about your life, is it yours, or did you absorb it from the constant stream of other people's urgency? The modern world is extraordinarily efficient at filling your mind with its own agenda before you have had a chance to form one of your own. Solitude is the practice of reclaiming authorship. The Sensei keeps a blank scroll in the teaching room. He calls it the morning mind, and he asks every student the same question on their first day. What does your scroll look like before the world writes on it? Most students realize they don't know because they have never given themselves the time to find out. After 2 weeks of daily solitude, you begin to know. Your own voice, the one beneath all the borrowed noise, becomes distinguishable. And once you can hear it, You cannot unhear it. Number 3, solitude rebuilds your capacity for deep focus. Focus is not a technique. It is not a time-blocking system or a browser extension that blocks social media. Focus is a state of being. And like every state of being, it has a source. The source of deep focus is inner stillness. A mind that is never still cannot focus deeply, no matter how many productivity tools it uses. The sensei uses a metaphor that has stayed with every student who has heard it. The mind is like the surface of a lake. When the wind is constant, when the noise never stops, the surface is always broken. You can see movement, but you cannot see to the bottom. You cannot see clearly. When the wind stops, when you sit in solitude and allow the surface to become still, the lake becomes a mirror. And from that mirror, you can see with a depth and clarity that was impossible when everything was moving. After 3 weeks of daily solitude, people begin reporting the same thing. Their work improves not because they are working more hours, but because the hours they work are different in quality. Not because they added something, because they finally stopped subtracting their own stillness. Number 4, solitude transforms everything outside it. Here is the truth that takes most people by surprise. The 15 minutes of solitude do not stay in the 15 minutes. After 30 days, something has changed in the way you move through the rest of the day. Conversations become different. You listen more completely because you are not as desperate to fill silence. Decisions become different. You pause before reacting because you have been practicing the pause every morning. Work becomes different. You bring a quality of presence to tasks that was not available when your mind was always moving. The sensei does not teach solitude as an escape from the world. He teaches it as a preparation for it. A sword that is never sharpened can still be used, but it will do the work badly and cost enormous effort. A sword sharpened daily enters the day with an edge that everything else lacks. People who complete 30 days consistently describe the same experience. The world did not become quieter, but they became more capable of carrying its noise without being consumed by it. In a world designed to fragment your attention and borrow your peace, the ability to return to your own stillness every morning is perhaps the most radical act available to you. So here is where you begin. Not next week, not when life is less busy. Tomorrow morning. Before the phone, before the news, before the first demand of the day arrives with its urgency. 15 minutes, one chair, complete solitude. You do not need to meditate correctly. You do not need to empty your mind. You simply need to be present with yourself, without anything competing for that presence. The first day will feel uncomfortable. The second day will feel strange. By the end of the first week, something will have shifted that you cannot quite name yet. By the end of 30 days, you will not want to give those 15 minutes back. The sensei has taught this practice for a long time, and in all that time, he has never met a single person who completed 30 days and wished they had spent those minutes on their phone instead. Not one. The scroll is blank every morning. What gets written on it and who writes it is entirely yours to decide. 15 minutes, starting tomorrow.